Episode 2. Hey, welcome to the Title Abstract, the podcast about the people, tools, and trends shaping the future of title. You've got the three hosts here: Justin Williams with Razzi, Rob Zwink, also with Razzi, our CTO and co-founder, John Dyer, doing everything interesting in title up there at Nova, and our esteemed guest again, Mike Simon. I'll say esteemed, for lack of a nicer term, but.
Just the gray hair, man. That's all. It's easy.
So, having Mike on the podcast here this week, I wanted to talk about real estate agents, their priorities, what you see going on in the market. If you can just give us an intro on Agent Brief itself, and then we've got a few uh, you know, interesting things that are becoming priorities for them in the next 12 to 24 months as far as the internet's concerned. So, just a quick, brief on Agent Brief there, Mike.
Sure. A brief on Agent Brief. I can do
Mm-hmm.
that. So, the design of Agent Brief was really recognizing the importance of real estate agents in our ecosystem, right? Our ecosystem is really focused on these individual real estate agents and their activities. And there is a whole host of dependent industries that rely on knowing what real estate agents are doing. That's typically not easy to find, right? If you don't have MLS access, if you don't have good data, if you don't have good relationships, it's really hard to know what real estate agents are doing. So our design, first and foremost, was to move our industry away from this over-reliance on historical data. What's happened, who did what with whom, who's cheating on me. That data is available. But it's not opportunistic. So what we wanted to bring to the industry was a way for title reps to work more effectively with real estate agents. Real estate agents are constantly getting spammed. They're constantly being cold called. Automation has taken over. AI has taken over, and agents are just being bombarded. Do business with me, do business with me, do business with me. And it's lost the personal touch that has been really the cornerstone of our industry, the residential real estate industry in its entirety. So one of the things we really sought to do with Agent Brief was to make not just the title rep's job easier, using data, finding about opportunities, actionable moments that are opportunities for title reps, but also stop this bombardment of real estate agents, which really overwhelms them. If you use automation to constantly reach out to real estate agents, it's spamming. It really is. And the use of these technologies that really just automate all of this communication took away from the one thing that we all know is that I don't care about all the other skills any of us have in the residential real estate space. Number one to our success, I still believe this to this day, is our ability to build relationships. And technology was demeaning that in such a horrible way because agents were just being bombarded and it was ineffective. So recognizing that the real estate agent is so important in the transaction, is the center of the transaction, making data functional so people who support the real estate transaction, who support real estate agents, are doing so in a meaningful, direct, productive way, not doing it from sell, spam. And I think that was a real big shift for us. Something we wanted to focus on was, let's remember that the real estate agent is important in all of this, that the real estate agent controls the transaction, the property, the customer. And the best way for the surrounding industries, title specifically, and us in this case, to support that real estate agent is to support that real estate agent. Be there when the real estate agent needs you. Don't beat them up at inopportune times, spamming them, inopportune times, cold calling them, inopportune times, just dropping by without a real purpose. So we really wanted to make the use of data and the interaction between our customer or title rep and the real estate agent deliberate and meaningful so those two parties can work more efficiently together. And I think Agent Brief, in the way we look at data, in the way we report data, in the way we help our users communicate with real estate agents when there is a need, I think really has made that relationship's much more solid and much more functional versus it just being dialing for dollars. There has to be a purpose in why you reach out to real estate agents. There has to be a purpose in how you use data. And I think it was getting lost in this over technologically or technologizing, if that's a word, of our industry, where there was just too much tech being used to automate, and it was taking away from what real estate agents really rely on is the relationship they have with the providers that they work with.
First, it's not a word, Mike. So kudos for coining it, though.
Urban
And so
Dictionary 101, technologizing.
yeah. So we've got a couple like things ripped from the headlines that I think kind of fit in with. I don't know. Do you have an idea how many real estate agents you're like, I don't know, tracking through the Agent Brief platform?
4 million.
4 million. So you're in touch with what real estate agents are doing. I want to know what they're doing next. And then John, maybe I'll tee it up for you first. As far as, we talked to a bunch of title reps, Agent Brief, Razzi, we partner. We both, sell into the sales side, the front of the house of title companies. And so I get to hear, a few different ways people position their, title agency to partner with real estate agents. Some are like, we're very service oriented. We've got attorneys on staff. We can, go through really complex deals. Some folks really drum up the fact that they can help them market better to, we can provide farming leads based on, people that are empty nesters that might sell. So I see a couple different variations on, how title agents might get more in bed with their real estate agents. So there's a couple things from the headlines, two of which I think like kind of create the opportunity for, this clipster we're going to talk about. So the first is, Zillow is, it's saying online that they're, on a rough ride. They've got lawsuits and competition from companies like Compass, which are pulling listings off their traditional portals. Agents may lose visibility, and they're thinking like, how do I get my listings visible to a broader audience? So, any thoughts on that necessarily, John? Are you seeing anything
Well, there's
in your
there's
market?
been rumblings about this for a while, and one of the main concepts, as I understand it, is that if you're XYZ Real Estate and you're a big agency in Ohio and you get 1,000 listings, you would prefer for the buying. So that's the listing agent. Then you have the selling agent who has the buyer. So we call that the selling agent. You would rather keep that inside of your XYZ Real Estate because then you get two parts of a whole versus taking that listing and having your listing agent list that on a MLS or some other, national Zillow type site that then the world has access to. And so the world has more buyers, but XYZ Real Estate is going to make more money if it sells to another realtor and maybe inside of XYZ Realty. So if you could keep those listings, inside of your universe and exclude all the other realtors from the other companies from accessing it, so it's never in their a realtor, Keller Williams, can never make an offer on an XYZ listing because they don't know about it because it's inside that universe. You're going to make more money. Even the property sells for less money. Now, whether that's going to fly from a regulatory standpoint and so forth, there's issues with that because you're arguably doing restraint of trade and this and that all gets sorted out in due time. Zillow has some other issues with Redfin and in rental properties because they basically bought Redfin so that Redfin would know, so they could corner the market on those listings. That's a FTC has made that complaint. When I think about Zillow and what's going to go forward, I mean, Zillow is a great example of a tech company that's completely been successful. I mean, I remember it was a Monday or a Tuesday reading the Wall Street Journal, like below the fold, there was this thing, Zillow, that was going to be, you could log in and get the value of your property. Holy smokes, what's up with that? And then like 2 days later, it was totally crashed because everybody did it, and look at them now. I mean, there are realtors, there's a whole business out there where realtors get Zillow leads And some people love it and some people hate it. And there's lots of mortgage brokers that buy Zillow leads for the realtors, so the realtors give them the business. It's all this back and forth. It's probably all non-compliant RESPA, but leaving that to the side. And so, I'm not that familiar with how it works, but basically Zillow will give the lead. You sign up for these leads, and if you look at your phone, you have like 3 minutes to call the buyer. And the buyer logs in and says, I'm interested in this property. And then a realtor calls the buyer. And then if that realtor doesn't get it, then the next, and it goes down the tree to whomever is the person that answers their phone and calls the buyer. Whether that's good for business or people like it, I don't know. You know, it's what the tech is. The tech is it's comprehensive. We're having a lot of closings where we pay a 12.5 or some referral fee to Zillow because Zillow's involved. The agents typically don't like it because they have to do all the work because the Zillow agent really isn't qualified in their eyes to handle the party that they have, but that's how they got the lead and it's half a loaf. So I'd be curious to see, Mike, you know much more about this than me. I mean, how are you seeing that impact the rank and file agents and the use of these big entities and their kind of stranglehold over this data?
Yeah, it's so anti-competitive, and I think the one who's suffering the most is going to be the home buyers and sellers. I really do. I think it becomes anti-competitive. I think you are creating monopolies, and I think that, you know, I think real estate licensing question 101, real estate agents are fiduciaries for their customers. They're obligated to maximize sale price or get the best deal for their buyers. I mean, and you're just basically taking away that mindset from the real estate agent. I think it hurts the consumer in the long run. And I fear, the over Zillowing of the industry because they've created these monopolies. They've created these cottage industries that only they can tap into. So they are the leader, but I think real estate agents got very drunk on what they were being sold, and you add to that guys like you getting hit up by real estate agents saying, I'll give you more business if you buy Zillow leads for me. I mean, that's just crazy. If you had access to better data or you actually did your job, you wouldn't need that kind of stuff. So I think it almost made, real estate agents lazy, to what the job really entails. And I go back to, my early days where I could not believe that of all the things that a real estate agent must do to get a license, the one thing they didn't really teach real estate agents is about sales and marketing, and how to build relationships. And that's why, there's 37.5% turnover in real estate agents every year, right? The vast majority of real estate agents make less than $50,000 a year. Mm-hmm. So, you've got this such a disparity between the haves and the have-nots, and this doesn't feel like anything that's going to make that better. Real estate was an industry that a lot of people could enter. It was a low barrier to entry and be successful. But now it's become, so top heavy, and this feels like it's going to make it even more top heavy when you create these, kind of restrictions around. I'm not an economist, but it sounds like you're restricting free trade, and that feels like the direction is going. And I feel it's a pretty big negative.
Yeah, couple things. So I've had girlfriends, coworkers, I can see their screens like shopping Zillow like for hours a day. And I just wonder, like I did a quick exercise this morning where I was talking with ChatGPT. I was like, gave him my profile about, single, 40, my income, savings, find me the best 10 properties in Columbus based on the safety of the neighborhood, the ratings of their public, parks, and a couple other things, right? And it did a really good job. Like it gave me 10 listings. To Zillow's demise, I guess it was all going towards Redfin listings. So I just feel like maybe the portal traffic might reduce? Rob, we deal with listing data, leads, properties going on the market, AI. What are your kind of thoughts as far as, if Zillow becomes less relevant, what what can fill the spot to help the consumer?
Yeah. On our various episodes, while, working in head of technology at Razzi, I don't necessarily feel like I'm in the mind of a real estate agent. So I appreciate hearing Mike and John and their conversation. I was thinking, though, how we work with a lot of title offices, and I feel like one consistent theme is most title offices feel like the title office across the street is doing something like non-compliant with RESPA.
Because they are.
Right. There is like kind of a complicated finger pointing, and right. And I think it is difficult when it's not maybe being as openly enforced as it was, or it's being enforced inconsistently. So I think that said, there are the majority of title offices we talk to put meaningful effort into being compliant. And the idea of giving them the tools to be compliant, to build that relationship, to pick up the phone and just say, hey, these pictures look fantastic. Hope your property sells quickly. Give me 15 minutes to earn your business feels great. Like you're not talking about, and I'll print your brochures or offer you below market rent in my office building. And, being able to, I don't know, self-police is something that I've been very cognizant of since my 13 years at JP Morgan. I was there when the compliance hammer fell, and now they've got 60,000 people just working compliance. And, title offices need to remain compliant, even though they may not be being chased with a stick or something. I think there's a golden rule. And at the end of the day, if we as vendors, in this case, with my vendor hat on, can offer tools that can make it that possible, it feels good. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, and to fill the void, something that I've, kind of seen, I honestly, I'm old enough, I don't have a TikTok account, but, I do kind of see enterprising real estate agents getting better at their marketing materials, making short form videos. There's a guy here in Columbus that's got a drone that kind of flies in, does a really, interesting, visual layout of the property. I'm seeing that, home buyers are asking for like video calls instead of like visiting the home itself. There's a new platform called Clipster. And so it's a listing platform. It's like TikTok generation to real estate. And so they're doing AI generated video walkthroughs, live streamed open houses, agents building followings with short viral property clips. And so the idea is that, these realtors are now like gaining followers around property listings. And I thought it was kind of unique. I think will they be able to get the eyeballs? Maybe not. Maybe it's a good acquisition target for a Zillow that, needs a new way to generate those eyeballs. So I don't know, Mike, you kind of live and breathe with real estate agents. I think for quite some time you ran a part of Keller Williams, and just knowing that real estate agents need to learn new techniques in marketing. What are you seeing out there in the market?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, tech adoption is, we've already established this, it's very really just hard. And, what we forget sometimes is that real estate agents, not particularly tech savvy, will gravitate towards something easy. I'm seeing even, recently, and I'll keep the company name quiet for now, but, I see companies out there that are just basically using AI for everything. Consumer calls up, speaks to AI about what they're looking for, speaks to AI about all the different things they're looking for in the home. And while it's really cool from a user perspective to speak to the bot and then see what the bot can spit out, your real estate agents have to be very, very mindful of not letting technology take over their job, right? again, we've said it so many times that it's a personal business. It's a big financial decision. It is the emotional decision. People involved in that make that process better, not worse, especially good real estate agents, But when you take people out of it and you make it so automated and so robotic, I feel like there's more risk there. I don't know why, but I feel like that there's more risk there. That am I really going to trust my decisions to AI when it comes to this home? Like I want to speak to a person, not just a real estate agent, a financial advisor. There's lots of things that go along with this. So I really do worry about real estate agents. There's adoption of technology, but then there's the deferral to technology that I think worries me about where real estate agents are going. And a lot of this I see is just really making it all so computerized that, and I don't want to sound old school because I'm in the tech business, right? So I believe in tech and I want to see tech proliferate in our industry and I want things to get better. But it's just this, kind of deference to technology can do a better job than I am, or I don't want to do the job, so I let technology do it for me. It feels scary to me that would be something that real estate agents would embrace. Now, I don't think that the top real estate agents are doing that. I think that what you find is that a lot of this tech and a lot of these making things easier actually is more attractive to the lower end of the spectrum, the lower producing agents who don't have the skills, who don't have the contacts, who don't have the financial support to really compete with the bigger guys. So I see that there's a massive market for it. Maybe it's 80% of the real estate agents buy into stuff like this, but I think that still the top producers realize that their success is based partially on tech, mostly on, their presence, their visibility, their relationships that they're building. So I'm not all in on all of this tech. I'm in on some of it, but when you are really talking about things that eliminate tasks that real estate agents have traditionally done, that's where I, look twice at it and say, is that really the best way for the industry to evolve?
And just on the topic of maybe the top producers, John, I live in German Village here in Columbus, Ohio, and I see this woman in my neighborhood. She's got all the listings, and her URL is queenofthevillage.com. So she's doing something right. In Cleveland up there, what maybe give me two profiles of your top producing real estate agents, and if there's one that's kind of that up and comer that's using social media well, like, do you have any insights onto what they're doing that's unique, John?
I mean, to me, it's funny. At the beginning of the year, I said, I'm not going to communicate with anybody in a way that I couldn't in 1957. Like, I'm just going to go old school. I'm just going to flip the script. And so I think creativity is always rewarded. I mean, there's a woman on Instagram that's in Tampa, and I have a sister that lives in Tampa, and she told me about her. And she just basically, she's a realtor. And she's very funny, and she just basically roasts the houses. She's like, "Who would pay $1.2 million for this pile of crap?" I mean, and she's very funny, and she goes through the house, and so she's created a whole. I mean, it's probably a whole business, just that part of what she does, and it's just feeding on itself. I think that the people, like in anything, the people that are really good at selling real estate, they have the tools and they have the bells and whistles, but they're focused on the relationships they have. And the most glaring example I can give you, so there's a local office where in our market where realtors over like 72 years old have sold, like 6 of them have sold more houses than the whole rest of the office for this year. And these people are clients, and like 22 years ago, they sold the parents a house. Then the parents bought another house and sold that house. And then the kids bought a house. Now the grandkids are buying houses. And I'm like, it just never ends. This relationship never ends. And the lesson is, if you handle a relationship and you take care of a client, they'll probably be your client for life. And that's that's very valuable. And at the end of the day, when people are making these, when we kind of sound like a broken record, but it's because it's true. When people are making all these big decisions, they don't want ChatGPT to tell them what to do. They want to look in the eyes of a human being that they trust who says, you can do this. This is going to work out. Like, everything is okay. That issue on the third floor, that's not a big deal. I have somebody that can get your pool up and running next year. It's not going to cost more than like $3-4 grand. They want that human capability and touch. And if you're willing to do that, and it's not easy, and it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lifetime to build up those relationships, but if you put in the work, you'll get the positives out of it.
Absolutely.
It's funny, John, when I hear people talking about which real estate agent to choose, and I just went through this with a friend who's saying, well, I heard such and such's sister's a real estate agent and they want me to use her. I said, well, how long has the sister been in the real estate business? Well, she's been in the business, a couple of years. And you go in and you look at their data. They sold one house in the last 5 years. And you say, that's not a good decision.
Yeah.
You're devaluing real estate agents by saying that every real estate agent is created equal, and because they're not. So I 100% agree with what you're saying, is that, if you're a first-time home buyer, if it's your third home, if you're buying an investment property, you want a real estate agent with knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Not just somebody with a license, and not my girlfriend's sister's ex-cousin. It's just, these are not skilled professionals. Mm-hmm. And just because you can get a real estate license doesn't mean that you're good at the job. And I think that consumers probably don't do enough work, and there's not enough of the right information about why you would choose a real estate agent. And it's not just years in the business, but it's your experience, it's your relationships, and not putting all real estate agents into one bucket, because it's very, very dangerous to do it that way. Mm-hmm. So I see that, and I just, I always caution people, don't make the easy decision about which real estate agent to choose. Make the hard one. Don't necessarily pick the one that you have the best relationship with, or that's the nicest to you, or that, like, you maybe want somebody who's a little bit more difficult, maybe a little bit more abrasive. Mm-hmm. Remember, these are your advocates. You're hiring an advocate. You're hiring an agent. Put yourself in the position of a professional athlete, right? You're hiring an agent to represent you in really, really difficult negotiations. Well, a real estate transaction is so foreign to most people. Why would you hire somebody fresh off the boat just because they're related to a friend of yours? That's not a good decision. So real estate agents who are upping their game are the ones you should be paying attention to. And yes, technology too is upping their game, but not leaving it all to technology. That's the mistake. Eliminating that intelligence.
Well, Mike, maybe you've got a consumer app here, my friend. You got all this real estate information, like, let's help these consumers get more educated on people they should know.
No, thank you. No, thank you. I do
case.
Not want to do no consumer facing products right now. B2B only. Thank you.
Sure. Well, cool. Anything else, gentlemen? At this segment, we were hoping to help title companies know about what their realtors care about, what they're doing, maybe what's priority number one for them in the future, which is getting discovered. I think that's the takeaway I'm getting here, is like, you're going to win the deal based on your transaction history, how good you are. But I think, realtors are trying to find ways to get discovered better. And I think this woman in Tampa's onto something.
Absolutely.
I'm going to try and follow her.
I mean, just in closing, from my perspective, what we try to do is we try to solve their problems and reflect positively on them in our interactions with their clients. I mean, that's it. They're not coming to us for any of these other things. That's their job. They need to find the clients. We'll take care of them in a high touch, highly educated, fair priced way. And then when there's a problem, we'll jump into it with both feet and do everything we can to solve it.
John, I agree with you. I think that if a title rep is talking to real estate agents, meet the real estate agent where they are. And that starts with communication. Are you communicating with them? Email, text, phone call? Get find out where the real estate agents are. They're not looking for you. You're looking for them, right? So meet agents where they are. Understand their pain points. Consultative selling, is what is really leading the way here. So understand their pain points, and their pain points are going to be different transaction by transaction.
Yeah.
And be a trusted resource for them. And those things I think are irreplaceable by technology.
Yep.
Now, technology is going to support all of this, going to make this better, faster, easier, more efficient, more productive. I get it. But first and foremost is they need to trust you. They need to trust you. You're going to be there. They need to trust you. You're going to bring them the tools. You're going to be a problem solver for them. Don't create problems, but solve problems and meet the agent where they are.
Yeah, kind of in closing, I guess what I'm hearing here is like you're part of their reputation. So, help them, garner a good reputation so that they can broadcast it, find those new mediums to get eyeballs that, at some point they want to ask about your reputation. That's been another episode of the Title Abstract, the podcast about the people, tools, and trends shaping the future of title. If you found this valuable, pass it on to a friend, a colleague, an underwriter. And thank you very much, everybody.